It was against this backdrop that Crystals of Arborea, released in 1990 for Amiga, Atari ST, and MS-DOS, emerged as their first foray into the complex realm of role-playing games. Whilst the early 90s saw a growing appetite for fantasy RPGs, a genre largely dominated by American developers. However, European studios often brought a distinct flavor, sometimes described as bizarre or off by American players, but also lauded for their innovation and willingness to deviate from established norms. Silmarils aimed to blend strategic depth with the immersive storytelling of an RPG, creating a hybrid experience that would lay the groundwork for their more famous Ishar trilogy. Indeed, Crystals of Arborea is often referred to as Ishar Zero, sharing the same universe and some backstory links with its successors. The vision for Crystals of Arborea was primarily brought to life by Michel Pernot and Pascal Einsweiler, who are credited as the game's designers and programmers. Pascal Einsweiler also contributed significantly to the graphics, while Fabrice Hautecloque composed the music, and Jean-Pierre Ferté crafted the evocative cover art. Their collective effort sought to transport players to the island kingdom of Arborea, a remnant of a world ravaged by cosmic conflict. The game's narrative plunges players into a world thrown into chaos by Morgoth, the deity of discord. After his banishment from the Pantheon, Morgoth unleashed his fury, corrupting the orcs and black elves and inciting rebellion. In response, the other gods flooded the world, leaving only the island of Arborea, home to 4 elemental crystals that maintained balance. These crystals, representing earth, fire, water, and air, were dislodged from their towers and scattered, plunging Arborea into peril. Players embodied Jarell, the last prince of the Shamners, an elf-like race, tasked with finding these crystals, returning them to their rightful towers, and ultimately defeating Morgoth to restore harmony. The choice of the name Morgoth and the company's name Silmarils clearly showcased the creator's deep inspiration. From J.R.R. Tolkien's works, Crystals of Arborea offered a unique blend of exploration and combat. Players navigated a party of Jarell and up to 6 companions, choosing their classes warrior, ranger, or wizard, and allocating stat points, though character names were fixed. The game featured a 3D perspective for exploring the overworld and dungeons, alongside a 2D map that allowed players to split their party for reconnaissance, a novel strategic element. Silmarils boasted approximately 16,000 locations to explore, promising a vast world, though not all were essential to completing the main quest. Technically, the game was noted for its use of a real-time 3D environment, a significant feature for its time, and a large world with few limits on movement. While the 3D screens were considered well-drawn with detail in trees and houses, some reviewers noted a lack of variety in landscapes and a slug-like pace with screen-by-screen transitions rather than smooth scrolling. Combat, a key differentiator from its successors, was turn-based and took place on a 6x7 grid. Characters had to be strategically positioned for line of sight, with melee fighters needing adjacency and spellcasters or rangers requiring clear lines. This system, while innovative, received mixed reactions, with some comparing it to a repetitive game of chess. Challenges during development likely included optimizing these 3D environments and the grid-based combat for the hardware limitations of the era. One notable technical detail was that the graphics, while displaying in 16-color VGA 320x200 on PC, were originally drawn for EGA. The music and sound design were generally well received, with critics praising the very medieval feel of the music that complements the action perfectly. Sound effects were described as sparse, consisting of occasional growls, screams, and clangs during combat, along with ambient bird noises in the wilderness. However, it is worth noting that the DOS version of the game reportedly had no music or ambient sound, only battle sound effects. Upon its initial release, Crystals of Arborea garnered mixed but generally positive reviews, particularly for its Amiga version. Magazines like The One and CU Amiga gave it high scores 86% and 91% respectively, praising its graphics, music, and a simple and friendly front-end user interface. Amiga Action also gave it 86%, acknowledging its blend of strategy and RPG genres and noting Dungeon Master's influence. However, not all critics were as enamored. Amiga Power, known for its more critical stance, gave it a mere 48%, finding the pace slow, the rules seemingly random, and the overall experience one big snooze. The combat system, despite its innovation, was often cited as a point of contention, described as strange, grid-based strategic affairs lacking violence or pace. Despite the mixed reception, Crystals of Arborea carved out its niche. Its immediate market impact was as a precursor to the more successful Ishar series, which would follow in 1990. The game's legacy is intrinsically linked to Ishar, sometimes seen as a foundational, albeit somewhat unpolished, entry in that universe. Silmarils itself continued to develop games across various genres, but the Ishar series remained their most recognized contribution. Over time, the perception of Crystals of Arborea has evolved. While initially praised for its graphics and ambitious 3D world, its gameplay mechanics, particularly the combat and sometimes slow pace, have been viewed more critically in retrospect. The game is now often remembered as a weird little strategy RPG hybrid and a game engine in search of an actual game, with limited leveling and a short playtime. However, it is also appreciated by some for its unique approach and its role in the lineage of European RPGs. The game's re-release as part of the Ishar compilation in 2009 received poorer reviews, largely due to the advancements made by its successors. Silmarils eventually went out of business in 2003, but the Rockies brothers and Pascal Einsweiler went on to found Eversim, a company specializing in geopolitical simulation games. While Crystals of Arborea may not have achieved widespread acclaim or numerous awards, it remains a fascinating artifact of French game development from the early 90s, a testament to a studio's ambition to craft expansive fantasy worlds and experiment with genre conventions, ultimately paving the way for a more renowned series. It stands as a unique, if sometimes challenging, chapter in the rich tapestry of computer role-playing games. The early 1990s were a fascinating crucible for role-playing games, a time when the boundless ambition of developers often stretched the very limits of nascent technology. Into this landscape in 1992 emerged Ishar, Legend of the Fortress, a title from the French studio Silmarils that dared to challenge the conventions of the dungeon crawler. Silmarils, founded in 1987, had already carved a niche for itself with atmospheric and often challenging RPGs, and Ishar was poised to be their most ambitious undertaking yet. The motivation was clear: to create a successor to their acclaimed Crystals of Arborea, pushing the boundaries of graphical fidelity and immersive world-building on platforms like the Amiga, Atari ST, and later, the PC.AT. The heart of Silmarils was a creative core driven by a passion for fantasy and intricate game design. Jean-Christophe Tiffry, a pivotal figure, often contributed significantly to the design and artistic direction, envisioning the sprawling world of Ishar. The team at Silmarils prided itself on crafting rich, detailed environments, and Ishar was to be their magnum opus in this regard. Development was, as was common for the era, a labor of love and immense technical challenge. The goal was to create a truly seamless first-person 3D experience, a significant undertaking given the processing power available. One of the most memorable aspects of Ishar's development was the sheer dedication to graphical detail. Each environment, from the verdant forests to the dark, foreboding fortress, was painstakingly rendered, often pixel by pixel, a testament to the artist's commitment. The game character portraits, too, were celebrated for their distinctiveness and evocative expressions, adding a layer of personality rarely seen in similar titles. Upon its release, Ishar, Legend of the Fortress, was met with a mixed but generally positive reception. Critics lauded its stunning graphics and expansive world, often citing them as groundbreaking for the time. The transition from static images to a more fluid, pseudo-3D environment was a technical marvel that drew players deeper into the world of Ishar. Its market impact was significant, solidifying Silmarils' reputation as a purveyor of high-quality, challenging RPGs. While it didn't sweep major awards, its strong sales and dedicated fan base spoke volumes about its appeal. The historical and cultural context of the early 90s, with a burgeoning PC gaming market and a hunger for more immersive experiences, perfectly positioned Ishar to capture the imagination of a generation of gamers. The artistic direction of Ishar was undeniably its strongest suit. The visual style was characterized by a rich, detailed palette and an almost painterly quality, particularly in its environmental design and character portraits. This evolution from the more static presentations of earlier RPGs was a huge leap forward, creating a palpable sense of presence within the game world. Technically, Ishar introduced a sophisticated 3D engine for its time, allowing for smooth scrolling and a sense of depth that few competitors could match. This innovation was key to its immersive quality, making exploration a truly engaging experience. The atmospheric journey through Ishar was further enhanced by its compelling music and sound design. While specific composers might not be household names, the themes were memorable, shifting from tranquil melodies in safe zones to tension-building scores in dangerous encounters. The sound effects, too, contributed to the immersion. From the clang of steel to the rustle of leaves, each element carefully crafted to deepen the player's connection to the world. The storyline of Ishar was classic high fantasy, centering on the quest of the protagonist Zubaran to defeat the malevolent wizard Morgoth and reclaim the legendary fortress of Ishar. Players could recruit a diverse cast of characters, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and distinct personalities, adding a layer of strategic depth and emotional attachment to the party. These main characters, through their interactions and individual stories, enriched the game universe, making the player's journey feel more personal and impactful. The community surrounding Ishar was passionate, fostering discussions about its challenging puzzles and intricate combat. While the era predated widespread modding communities as we know them today, the game's lasting legacy is evident in the fond memories shared by players who experienced its unique blend of beauty and difficulty. The perception of Ishar has evolved over time. While some aspects might feel dated by modern standards, its pioneering spirit and artistic achievements are still celebrated by retro gaming enthusiasts and historians. It stands as a testament to a time when creativity and technical ambition often triumphed over limitations, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of computer role-playing games. Ishar, Legend of the Fortress, wasn't just a game, it was an experience. A window into a beautifully crafted fantasy world that continues to resonate with those who dared to venture within its walls. In the vibrant, often chaotic landscape of early 1990s computer gaming, a French studio named Silmarils etched its name into the annals of role-playing history. Founded in 1987 by the visionary brothers Louis-Marie and André Roch, Silmarils quickly became synonymous with ambitious, often challenging fantasy adventures, their very name a nod to the legendary jewels of J.R.R. Tolkien mythology. After the success of Ishar, Legend of the Fortress in 1992, a game that dared to take players out of claustrophobic dungeons and into expansive outdoor environments, the stage was set for an even grander journey. In 1993, Silmarils released its eagerly anticipated sequel, Ishar 2: Messengers of Doom. The motivation behind Ishar 2 was clear: to build upon the foundation of its critically acclaimed predecessor, expanding its world, refining its mechanics, and deepening its narrative. The European RPG scene of the time was dominated by first-person, real-time dungeon crawlers like Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder. Silmarils aimed to push these boundaries, offering a sprawling world and a more immersive experience. At the heart of Ishar 2's creation was a dedicated team. André Roch served as director, also contributing to programming and writing. Michel Pernot and Pascal Einsweiler shaped the game's design, with Pascal Einsweiler also taking on the crucial role of artist, defining the game's visual identity. Fabrice Houteklok, in addition to programming, composed the game's soundtrack, aiming to imbue the world of Arborea with an atmospheric auditory landscape. Louis-Marie Rox also lent his writing talents to the game's lore. The artistic direction of Ishar 2 was a significant leap forward. While maintaining the first-person perspective that characterized the series, the visual fidelity was markedly improved. The game world, now an archipelago of 7 distinct islands, each named after one of the companions of the elven prince Jarrell from the prequel Crystals of Arborea, was 3 times larger than its predecessor. Players traversed highly detailed landscapes, from the murky swamps of Irvin's Island to the bustling cityscape of Zack's Island, and even climbed mountain paths with real graded height effects, a clever illusion that gave a genuine sense of verticality despite the 3D grid-based movement. The game's vibrant graphics, featuring up to 32 colors on the Atari ST and the equivalent of DOS's 256 colors on the Amiga 1200, contributed to a rich and varied aesthetic. Beyond aesthetics, Ishar 2 introduced several technical innovations that enhanced gameplay. A groundbreaking day and night cycle wasn't just cosmetic, it affected the game world directly, with shops closing after dusk and medieval nightclubs only opening at night, influencing player strategy and exploration. The interface was streamlined and more mouse-driven, a welcome improvement for players navigating complex party mechanics. Perhaps one of the most significant quality-of-life additions was the self-mapping facility, an auto-map that eliminated the need for tedious manual charting, allowing players to focus more on the adventure. The combat system also received an ergonomic overhaul, making real-time battles more fluid and engaging. Players could now utilize pet animals in combat and craft magic potions, adding new layers of tactical depth. A highly praised feature was the ability to import saved characters from Ishar, Legend of the Fortress, providing a sense of continuity and reward for veteran players. The narrative of Ishar 2 plunged players into a new crisis for the world of Arborea. Following the defeat of Krogh, the land of Kindoria and its surrounding islands had entered a golden age, with the original fortress of Ishar transformed into a cultural beacon. However, this peace was shattered by Shandar, a malevolent monk of chaos. Shandar, having amassed power by trading hallucinogenic drugs, had taken control of Zack's Island, building a formidable second Ishar to challenge the Empire. Players assumed the role of Zubaran, the new Lord of Ishar, who, after receiving a prophetic vision from John the Alchemist, embarked on a quest to traverse the 7 islands and thwart Shandar's plan to poison the populace into subservience. The party management system, a hallmark of the series, returned, requiring players to consider the race and personality traits of up to 5 companions, as not all characters would get along. The game's release in April 1993 in Europe was met with widespread acclaim. Critics lauded its ambition and execution. CU Amiga hailed it as a must-buy and an astounding sequel, even proclaiming it the best game in the Ishar trilogy. ST format found it an absorbing and atmospheric challenge, while computer and video games ranked it among the best Amiga games of the year. Its market impact was significant, building on the reputation of the first game and solidifying Silmarils' position as a prominent European RPG developer. Yet, development and reception were not without their minor challenges. Some reviews noted tedious slogging around the islands in the early stages as characters gained experience, and the complex 3D graphics sometimes led to slowness of the gameplay and frequent disk accessing, though installing the game on a hard drive alleviated this. A common criticism was the occasional vagueness in quest progression, which could sometimes leave players unsure of how to proceed, or even inadvertently break a quest by missing a crucial item. The Amiga version's music, despite being composed by Fabrice Houteklok, was sometimes described as disappointingly dull compared to the game's otherwise immersive sound design. However, The series was praised for its overall immersive fantasy game experience, particularly its atmospheric sound effects like realistic battle screams and the sound of wind in the mountains. One notable, if dark, anecdote from development involved the assassinate button for party members. Testing revealed that killing an unwanted character could, surprisingly, increase team spirit. A less controversial change was the removal of the much-maligned pay-to-save mechanic from the first Ishar, a decision widely appreciated by players. Over time, the perception of Ishar 2: Messengers of Doom has largely remained positive, particularly within the retro gaming community. Initially celebrated as a substantial improvement over its predecessor and a high point for its genre, it has endured as a classic European RPG. The game's inclusion in compilations and its release on platforms like GOG.com in emulated versions testify to its lasting appeal and the desire of new generations to experience its challenging yet rewarding gameplay. While often compared to the Eye of the Beholder series, Ishar 2 is remembered for its distinct visual style, its less maze-focused design, and its ambitious, expansive world. It stands as a testament to Silmarils' creative vision and its significant contribution to the golden age of computer role-playing games. In the dynamic and fiercely competitive European gaming landscape of the early 1990s, French developer Silmarils carved out a niche for itself with ambitious, graphically rich role-playing games. Founded in 1987 by brothers Louis-Marie and André Roux, Silmarils was named after J.R.R. Tolkien's legendary gems, signaling their aspiration for epic fantasy narratives. By 1994, the company had established a recognizable brand with its Ishar series, a first-person perspective RPG franchise that had quickly gained a loyal following. Following the success of Ishar, Legend of the Fortress 1992 and Ishar 2, Messengers of Doom 1993, the stage was set for the grand finale, Ishar 3, The Seven Gates of Infinity. That the motivation behind Ishar 3 was clear: to conclude the sprawling saga of the land of Kendoria and its perennial struggle against the forces of chaos, while pushing the boundaries of visual fidelity and narrative complexity that its predecessors had become known for. The industry at the time was experiencing a shift, with a burgeoning interest in 3D graphics, even as many RPGs still relied on beautifully drawn 2D environments. Silmarils aimed to deliver a visually stunning experience that would stand out. At the heart of Ishar 3's creation were key figures like Michel Pernot and Pascal Einsweiler, credited as authors and designers, who had been instrumental in shaping the Ishar trilogy. Louis-Marie Roux also contributed to programming, alongside Jean-François Trevien, while Eric Galland and Guillaume Maginot were among the graphic artists who brought the game's vibrant world to life. Fabrice Houtekloc was the composer responsible for the game's musical score, building upon the atmospheric themes of the previous entries. The team, primarily based in Silmarils' Nancy studio, aimed to refine the established Ishar formula rather than reinvent it, believing in the strength of their existing design. Dot development was not without its creative challenges. While Ishar 3 was praised for its superb graphics and rich atmosphere, some critics noted that the core gameplay, with its grid-based first-person movement, felt somewhat dated compared to the emerging trends in RPGs. The game's initial setting in a massive city, Koran Banir, while graphically impressive, could be too huge, leading to tedious navigation and miles of fruitless wanderings for players without an automap. The combat system, real-time like its predecessors, was also a point of contention, with some finding it pathetic due to minimal animation and a lack of tactical depth beyond agile mouse clicks. Anecdotes from development suggest a focus on visual detail, with environments ranging from deepest dungeons to the streets of the city and the paths of the forest, all rendered with vast attention to detail. Upon its release in 1994 for Amiga, Atari ST, Atari Falcon, Macintosh, and DOS, Ishar 3, The Seven Gates of Infinity, received a mixed but generally positive reception. Amiga-centric publications were often more enthusiastic. CU Amiga called it almost the perfect RPG, praising its improved plot and incredible visuals, while Amiga Computing described it as one of the most absorbing and atmospheric adventures around. PC reviews, however, were sometimes harsher. PC Gamer US noted that hardcore FRPG fans will probably like it, novices will find it tedious, overwhelming, and frustrating, though still acknowledging the often breathtakingly beautiful graphics. The game's average score from critics hovered around 69%. Its market impact was significant enough to be considered a notable RPG release of 1994, appearing on lists of important titles for the year. The historical and cultural context of 1994 saw the RPG genre grappling with the transition from 2D sprite-based graphics to the nascent world of 3D, exemplified by games like The Elder Scrolls Arena. While Ishar 3 stuck to its 2D, beautifully drawn style, it did so with a level of artistry that impressed many. The game's artistic direction was characterized by richly textured, almost oil painting-like visuals, with digitized photos used for character portraits, adding a touch of realism to its fantasy world. The use of 256 colors on the Amiga AGA chipset allowed for vast environmental variety and intricate detail across its diverse locations. From bustling cities to lush jungles and ancient caverns. Technologically, Ishar 3 continued to utilize the ALICE engine, the proprietary technology developed by Silmarils for the series. While not a revolutionary leap from its predecessors, it refined the first-person grid-based movement and real-time combat system. A notable technical feature was the ability to import characters from previous Ishar games, a beloved feature that allowed players to continue their journey with their seasoned party members. However, this import system had its quirks, with some players reporting odd character portraits or unexpected changes in spell availability. The music and sound design, composed by Fabrice Hotecloque, aimed to enhance the game's atmosphere. While some reviewers found the music forgettable, others noted the fine quality of Silmarils' typical sound design. The soundtrack included distinct themes for locations like Koran Banir, merchant shops, and taverns, though some felt the lack of constant music outside these areas, relying mostly on ambient sounds, could make large areas feel empty. The main storyline of Ishar 3 picks up after the events of Ishar 2, where the evil sorcerer Shandar was seemingly defeated. However, Shandar, a monk of chaos and a recurring antagonist since Crystals of Arborea, found a way for his vital energy and consciousness to survive his physical death, intending to reincarnate into the body of the last great black dragon, Waratax, also referred to as Sith. Players reprise the role of Zubaran, the Lord of Ishar, or can create a new party, and are tasked with preventing Shandar's return by hunting down and destroying the dragon before a planetary conjunction allows the reincarnation to occur. The quest involves traversing 7 gates of infinity, which lead to different time periods, each with its own unique climate and landscape, adding a temporal dimension to the exploration. The Ishar series, including Ishar 3, cultivated a dedicated fan base, particularly among European RP enthusiasts who appreciated its distinct visual style and challenging gameplay. While there aren't extensive records of community-driven mods, the enduring appeal of the series is evident in retrospectives and its presence on platforms like jog.com, which offers the Ishar compilation to a new generation of players. The ability to import characters fostered a sense of continuity and attachment among players, a feature ahead of its time for many RPGs. Controversies and obstacles primarily revolved around the game's difficulty and sometimes obtuse puzzle design, which could lead to lunar logic solutions and the possibility of soft-locking progression if tasks were done out of order. The large, sprawling maps, combined with a lack of automap, were often cited as frustrating elements. Furthermore, while Silmarils had planned a 3DO interactive multiplayer version and even completed an Atari Jaguar CD conversion, neither was ultimately released, with the latter falling victim to Atari Corporation's closure. Spurwell stories from players often highlight the game's superb graphics as a major draw, with many recalling the lush environments and detailed character portraits. Some players recount the difficulty of early game progression, especially without powerful weapons or reliable spellcasting, as mages might inexplicably lose spells after initial use. Despite these frustrations, the sense of accomplishment upon completing such a challenging RPG was deeply rewarding. Perception of Ishar 3 has evolved over time. While contemporary reviews were somewhat mixed, especially comparing it to the rapidly advancing RPG genre, modern retrospectives often appreciate it as a significant, albeit flawed, entry in the history of first-person dungeon crawlers. It is remembered for its artistic ambition, its commitment to a continuous narrative across the trilogy, and its unique charm as a product of French game development in the early 90s. Today, Ishar 3, The Seven Gates of Infinity, stands as a testament to Silmarils' vision, a visually striking, challenging, and memorable conclusion to a cult classic RPG series.